Anthony sticking his neck on the line there, making some bold predictions.
I didn't say anything. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe. And if you have subscribed and you... I'll start again.
If you haven't, then do.
If you haven't already, hit the subscribe. If you have already...
Clip it up. Red mate. And
This is Chris. Hit that subscribe.
if you have already, the little bell notification button.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, we're trying to get as much content up as we can, but, you know, just in case we drop one on a day, you're not ready for it, you know.
Oh, a little surprise drop.
You just want to be notified that we've dropped it, you don't want to miss it, or make sure you're keeping up with the content, you know.
You know who I haven't heard from recently? My red mate.
Red mate. You two mates.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get as much out as we can, but yeah, just in case there's a bit of inconsistency or we drop one on a different day or whatever, yeah, just make sure you guys are following along as best you can. But yeah, onto the serious stuff.
The hot topic the notification has alerted you to. Why don't I have a chat about Newcastle?
United?
Jets.
Okay. Yeah, okay. You put me on the spot.
No, Newcastle United,
Yeah.
we're black and white stripes. I want to have a bit of a quick chat about those boys because I guess they're coming through, got new owners in recently. So sort of having a bit of a chat around what's their trajectory, where can we maybe look out to see them in the coming years. But more so, what would you think is a successful 5-year plan, a successful 10-year plan for Newcastle United? And yeah, where should they be aiming?
I think immediately for me, you know, a big famous takeover that we've had in the Premier League is obviously Man City. I mean, Chelsea before that, but
Don't remind me.
Man City's obviously the one that's kind of, you know, mega money deal coming in. And, you know, they take this Man City side that were kind of been up and down in the past between Championship, Premier League, and now they start investing a lot of money. All of a sudden, their squad starts improving. They're getting results. And it's just that knock-on effect. And City, you know, their wealth was just so much more than everyone else that they could just invest so much more money. And then that really translates and shows on the pitch. And you see the stats in terms of the Man City owners against the Newcastle owners, and now the Newcastle owners have just completely dwarfed them. I mean, you know, I can't remember the exact figures, but they're like, you know, nearly 10 times as wealthy, or it might even be more than that, but it's just completely made these, you know, it's just astronomical sums of money. So Newcastle have basically got like a blank checkbook to work with, like obviously within financial fair play and whatnot, but yeah, they could really go crazy. Like I said at the start, I'm kind of comparing them to Man City. So from Man City getting invested in, what was it, 2008, 9 maybe, around that time, what had taken 4 or 5 years to win a Premier League?
Yeah, but I think they started off with the FA Cup as well, and that was kind of the moment where like, okay, these are achieving success now, and that snowball effect. I think a few players have come out and said that was a bit of a defining moment for them. And then we're here to stay, and they can really push on.
Already, I think there was kind of like a marked evolution already. The fact that they were able to attract a player like Kieran Trippier, who is playing over in Spain, had won the league over there. He's obviously like an England international. He's done well. He's gone to like the Euros, the World Cup. You know, famously scored the free kick in the semi-final. The year before and years prior, you would think, oh, a player like that, you know, he won't go to Newcastle. And now, all of a sudden, they can attract it. And I think, you know, now the benchmark has stepped up, and it'll just go up. I remember Man City when they got, I think it was Robinho, and he was meant to be like a really massive name at the time. He was like the young prospect coming through, and they signed him. It was like, wow, okay, like they're making statements here in terms of signings
from Real Madrid.
Yeah, and then so people, like other players, see that and they go, oh, he's going there, okay, maybe I'll go there too. Yeah. Or I'd like to play with him, or whatever it is.
I think Carlos Tevez moving from United, albeit on a free transfer, but to City was another one as well.
Yeah.
Of just like, hang on, why would you leave that club, which is winning, you know, almost everything, and go to City? There's obviously something going on here, and that was kind of on the up.
I remember heaps of the Arsenal players, you know, we touched on, Adebayor, but even like
Clichy and things like that.
Sanya and Nasri, and there was like, yeah, a few of them all just moving across, and you just start seeing that team just improving. I think Newcastle have definitely done the right things. They didn't go too crazy in the January transfer window, so they got taken over at the end of last year. January was their first window to spend, and it seemed to be kind of pretty intelligent what they did in terms of buying just Premier League proven players.
Yes. I think even, I think it was the signing of Chris Wood, not necessarily like a wow player, but taking him away from Burnley, who was like a relegation. Obviously, they did finish relatively safe, but at that time, it was like another relegation team. They took like one of their best players or a key figure in that team and took him into their team. So not only are you making yourself stronger, you're making your direct opponents a bit weaker. And I think that is what the top clubs always try and do, and almost hurts the most when your players, from a Liverpool perspective, like a Raheem Sterling going to Man City or something, you're like, we're trying to build and you're going to a direct rival. And I think evolving that back to Newcastle, that was something they did well, is kind of making their teams in and around where they want to be a little bit weaker whilst making themselves stronger.
Yeah, it's almost like the players have advised you which club is kind of more sought after or who they want to play for. I was thinking of Raheem Sterling exactly the same, where he's gone, I'm at Liverpool, but he sees Man City as a like a promotion or progression, a step forward. And the same where, to a neutral fan, where you might think, like, where's Newcastle in comparison to Burnley? They're similar on the table. But then Chris Wood's gone, oh, no, I'm going to go up here and play for Newcastle. It's just like another bit of evidence as to, okay, who's better at these two clubs, or which one's moving forward, or whatever. But yeah, they just seem to kind of buy like Dan Burn and like a few other players that you're like, okay, they've recognised where they need to strengthen, and they've just kind of brought in, not like these world beaters or these world class players, but it's like, no, these guys play in the Premier League and they're good. Let's get them in, and there's very low risk here, and the team will definitely improve in doing so.
So trying to structure something around that then and that trajectory, where do you think realistically we should be seeing Newcastle in 5 years?
So last season they finished 11th. I think we've mentioned this before, where you like with Gerrard and Villa, where you kind of, okay, like that's the line. Next season should be an improvement. So obviously kind of getting in the top half of the table would be a progression, but already just based on how they're playing, and I think after January last year they were like maybe second or third in the league in terms of form, behind Liverpool and City. So they definitely turned a corner straight away and started seeing like kind of the benefits and the results, and obviously Eddie Howe doing a great job there. But it's just going to be a step by step. So if they finish in the top 10 or the top half this season, I would say that's progress just based on last season. And then maybe the one after, you'd probably start aiming for like Europa League champion. Not to say they won't do it this season. I mean, they not easily could, but they potentially could. But it's all about kind of moving forward and just bettering your last season. I mean, they've definitely got the financial backing to do so now and invest in the team and improve them. Within 5 years, I think it would be a comfortable prediction to say in 5 years they should be challenging for top four. I mean, there's a lot of clubs out there who would say that they're challenging for top four, but to actually have like a serious chance of doing it, I mean, kind of going to the last couple games and having, the potential to do so, that's what I would expect. And once they start making top four consistently, then, challenging for a league. I mean, making top four and challenging for a league is very different. I think for years Liverpool were pushing for top four, and then there was only like that year that we finished behind City by a point. There was the one after that, and the one after we were like, okay, we're actually title contenders now. Whereas before that, it was just like, get top four, get top four, get top four. But yeah, what do you think?
It's a difficult one because I think silverware is an important aspect of a team evolving and achieving that success. So I think most Newcastle fans as well would probably enjoy a good cup run, whether that be FA Cup or League Cup, whatever it is, and getting some kind of silverware on the board or in the bag to build. And that team culture and that winning mentality can then breed from there. Interesting one when I think about like European places, because would having a season or two in like the Europa League or even the Europa Conference for them build some kind of European adventure, or do you know what I mean? Like a bit of a taste of that. But on the flip side, we know that the Conference League and the Europa League has a detrimental impact on league form.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a bit of a catch, because you want it and you want to be playing against some of these big clubs, like even Rangers last season making the final. That's big news. and it's amazing for that club to have that experience and that exposure. But maybe that had a detrimental impact and kind of let Celtic run away with it. Maybe Celtic were just that much better, but it is that, like, both sides, you almost need to win it for it to be successful. Like maybe a West Ham, like they had such a good run and made it to the semi-finals, but are they now suffering this season for that?
It's a big ask to play some of those European competitions. I know, like the Europa League, playing like the day after on the Thursday, and then expected to go play on the weekend, and even going from a team without European football to a team with it, it's another competition. You need a deeper squad. I
was about to say. And that travel, getting used to, staying in hotels in foreign countries and then coming back, all the rest of it being away from your family, that has to take a load on you as a human and on that personal level, outside of the professional level as well.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one with that, because I think to jump straight to top four, then hope to consistently challenge and sustain and build top four to challenge for the league is difficult without a little bit backing you from behind. I think obviously, your teams like your Liverpools, your Manchester Uniteds, those ones where they maybe have come out for a bit and try to get back in, they have that heritage and that tradition of being club. Like Liverpool is a classic example of where we can be very average at the best of times, but within Europe, I know as a fan, you always just have that belief anything can happen. Yeah. And I think that tradition, that experience and that exposure to those competitions pays dividends. So I think Newcastle ideally would benefit from a little bit of exposure in Europe at some level and being like, hey, we versed a relatively big team and we beat them. Or, this and that happened.
But even in terms of attracting other players, I think
most definitely,
like a foreign player would come to Newcastle and knowing that they've got Europa League football there versus no European football whatsoever. I mean, obviously, like the European competitions are tiered and everyone wants that Champions League. But if you're someone who probably can't get yourself into a Champions League side, then Europa League's the next best thing. I mean, yeah, there's the pros and cons that come with it, and what we see, those things that we've mentioned. But if they make Europa League in 2-3 seasons, I would say that Newcastle have been, like, that's a success for them now. How long do you think until they're, or if ever, do you think they could actually challenge for a Premier League?
I think, being reasonable, they're probably maybe 10 years away from the Premier League, if not more.
It took City, 5?
But I think the landscape was slightly different at that time. You would probably say at that time, your Chelsea and United were the only ones that were guaranteed to be pushing year on year. Liverpool, maybe a freak year here and there or something like that. Tottenham, likewise, for that one outstanding, where they ended up finishing third somehow. Leicester, obviously, the freak year as well. So, like, when City were really trying to make that climb, the ones that stand out, Chelsea, United. Now, Newcastle are trying to make that climb. Arsenal are on the up. Liverpool, God, let's hope they're, on a tiny little blip. City, we've spoken about how incredible Haaland is. All the rest of it, Chelsea, always thereabouts.
The new generation at United too.
United, yeah, with Erik ten Hag, trying to build something. I think that the landscape is just completely different. So they're trying to push. Did I touch on Tottenham there as well?
You mentioned
yeah, another one to throw in. They're trying to build when everyone else is kind of at a similar level, few up and above. So I think it's going to be a lot more challenging for them. Premier League money, all the clubs we're seeing, all these smaller or mid-table traditional clubs spending ludicrous amounts of money. And when it comes to wages, obviously Newcastle's wealth dwarfs everyone else's wealth, but as a player, you want to get paid lots of money. Pretty much every Premier League club can now pay you lots of money.
Yeah.
Even championship level clubs can make you a multi-millionaire. So the money factor in terms of wages isn't going to be crazy unless they start dropping astronomical wages. So I just feel like across the board it's a more difficult platform for them to build.
So there's more teams kind of in and around it than
previously. Yeah. I think so. Which is then going to stunt their growth or slow down their ambitions of climbing.
At a real simplistic view, people would just say, they've got money now. City came in with all this money, just invested or built this superstar team, and now potentially they've got like the best squad or like the most expensive squad in football. Like they've spent over $1 billion or £1 billion on players, and people are just expecting for us to see that again, like the sequel of that, but with Newcastle. Because now, all the transfer rumours, every window you see Neymar's linked with Newcastle. They're going to go crazy now. They're going to invest everything into Mbappe. They're going to get him there. Or like whatever it is, if one of these comes off, it will just be a domino effect where, actually, Mbappe is an example. Not that I think it will happen, but say he goes there, everyone else sees that and knows that, and all of a sudden it is really sought after. It just takes one little thing to happen, and then I think the balls start rolling. So
on the flip side of that, though, I think it's almost more difficult to attract that domino.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
You know, you talk about a top 6 teams in the Premier League, so 2 are going to miss out on the Champions League. Newcastle then need to break into that to make that 3 teams are missing out. Yeah. So, you know, like a Chelsea or a Liverpool or a City or a United, whoever it is now not making Champions League football because Newcastle are. To make that happen alone and then consistently make that happen, I think is just such a massive long shot or a big challenge. Even if I look at someone like a PSG, when they bought Neymar, it was like, oh my God, like they're going to win the Champions League, they're going to do everything. But realistically, they're still short that top quality to win the Champions League. And Mbappe comes through, does amazingly well. Oh, you know, they're going to win. Still fell short. Sign Messi, best ever player. Still falling short. You know what I mean? So, like, there's still elements to them where maybe that's a discussion for another time about how the French league is a detrimental impact on their Champions League form. But where just because you are signing these big name players and it does have a snowball effect, it doesn't guarantee success on the big stage.
But they are getting success in the league, and again, another argument. But what's easy to win at the Champions League because they're failing versus their expectation in the Champions League. And like you said, they sign all these players, and you think, okay, surely, their team is so stacked that this must be the year. But the nature of like a cup competition, you can just have a game or 2 bad games and you're gone. Whereas a league, over a prolonged period, if you've got a 38-game season, yeah, you might have 2 bad games and lose. But if you've been pretty consistent and you are the best team, you will win it. I mean, the French league, it's like a one-horse race, really. If they do start strengthening their team, they start getting results, it will just be a steady climb. I don't think they'll get top 4 this season, and we've definitely still got some really strong teams that probably won't give up their place just yet. It's going to take like a massive drop-off for one of the existing kind of top 6 teams, or something crazy where this Newcastle team does just become so good that they do surpass the existing teams.
I think it's going to have to be a long-term investment that they've got to view it, maybe their supporters as well. But on the outside, it definitely looks that way, like maybe investing in things like the training ground, some stadium upgrades here and there, and looking at it as a whole picture and building from there, bringing some good youth players through could be a goal that they kind of have to achieve. And ultimately, I'll bring it back, I think a good cup run here and there, get some trophies in the cabinet, would be a great place for them to start.
I think if they win a trophy, it would be a big statement. It'd be like, oh wow, okay. Yeah. You get people talking about them, and like right now, or definitely in the last few years, you wouldn't even kind of consider them as like, oh, these guys like a genuine threat of winning it. Even like the likes of like a Leicester who have won like an FA Cup and stuff recently, they're obviously in and around at that top half of the table. Newcastle need to kind of put themselves in that kind of category and then build from there.
Yeah, it is interesting you touch on that Leicester one, because I kind of feel like when Leicester won the FA Cup, it was just like, oh, isn't this the magic of the FA Cup, and this is like the good thing? It kind of upsets the apple cart of the usual teams win it, of Arsenal, City, Man United, Liverpool. But if Newcastle were to win it, you can almost picture that it'd be like, is this the first step in the new direction? Yeah. Is this the beginning of something new? Because of the ownership and how much money they have, that 2 teams you could argue of a similar stature, sort of in that next level down of the big boys, Newcastle, Everton, Leicester, those kind of West Ham, those kind of teams in that next bracket, if they were to win the FA Cup, the headlines are almost so much different to a Leicester in terms of like
Leicester was a bit of a fairy tale,
one-off. Oh, they won the FA Cup. This is great. Whereas if Newcastle do that, it'd be like, what next? Where does this go? Yeah. Where does this lead? So I think that in itself would be fantastic for them and would be a great place to start.
What would be a prediction for you 5 years' time?
5 years' time, I think a good prediction.
Where do they finish in the league?
5 years' time, Europa League spots. I'm gonna go for consistently finishing in those Europa League positions.
Oh, so you reckon they'll finish in it and it'll be like no one's surprised by it? You think that's a...
Maybe, yes, sorry. Maybe to clarify, towards that 10-year mark consistency.
10-year?
In the Europa League, for sure, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Like consistently.
But
in 5 years, at least achieving that and have a good cup run. I think a good semi-final or something like that, at least getting to Wembley, that would be great for Newcastle.
Yeah, I think that's it feels like a safe kind of prediction, Europa League, but Yeah, I think they can easily slot into that bracket you just mentioned with those couple other teams. If it was Newcastle, Leicester playing against each other tonight, already, Leicester in some pretty bad form at the minute, but it kind of feels like even on paper, like the Newcastle team could definitely give them a bit of a run for the money already with the kind of investment that they've made in the last 2 windows. But yeah, I'd probably say the same thing. I don't know. You've made some points there, but I just think back to Man City, like in 5 years, they did kind of, I think it was 5 years. Yeah, okay, I won't make anything too crazy. Yeah, I'll just say that because if they do surpass that, then that'll just be like really impressive to see.
All right, well that's Anthony sticking his neck on the line there, making some bold predictions.
I didn't say anything.
Clip it up.
No, I didn't say anything.
No, not willing to stick his neck out. I think 5 years, get a good cup run in, Europa League spot, build from there. Good success rate. Anyway, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you get involved. We did speak about that little bell button. Make sure you're clicking on it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Get around it. And anything to finish on?
Let us know your 5-year prediction, where they're going to finish.
Done deal. Thanks, Red Mate.
Thanks.